name is Pamela Clark, and I'm the resource teacher for the gifted at Campbell Elementary School in Arlington. I'm here today to tell you about our critical and creative thinking choice menu that we made for the month of May. It's a great resource for kindergarten, first, and second graders to keep you thinking at home. Our hope is that you will choose one activity to complete it each week. You can write the answers to the question, you can draw them, or you can just discuss them with your family. It's up to you. After you're done, if you want to, you could color in the box for the one that you've completed, just as a reward for the hard work you did. In these choice menus, you will find 7 different critical and creative thinking strategies. Our hope is that you'll try lots of different ones and do lots of great thinking. The third page tells you some details about each one of the different strategies, so your parents get a better understanding of what they're all about. The first strategy is questioning. When we do questioning, we're making our brain think about how to answer something in a creative or excellent way. For this activity, the hope is that you will find a great question to go with the answer. If the answer is 16, what might the question be? Think about that. How many questions can you come up with? You want to try to be creative and original. Well, you could think of a math equation like 10 plus 6 equals 16. So the answer to that question is, what is 10 plus 6? It's 16. But you could also think of another type of question, like, at what age can people begin to drive a car? The answer to that would also be 16. Be creative and think what the answer could be. There are lots of different choices too. What if the answer was Saturday? Or the answer was never? Or the answer was a movie theater? Or bacon? The next strategy we want you to try is called point of view. When you use the point of view strategy, you're trying to look from the perspective of someone else and think about what they would be thinking. This is great because it helps you feel what someone else might be feeling and think what they might be thinking. Some of the creative ideas we came up with are choice 1 and 2. Choice 1, you're going to pretend you and your friends are at recess, and then all of a sudden, you all become very tiny, only 1 inch tall. I want you to draw a picture of what the rest of recess would be like. Think about that. Think about it, how it would look and how it would feel to just be 1 inch tall. Choice 2 is about writing a fairy tale. Fractured fairy tales written from the point of view of another character. So we all know Little Red Riding Hood is written from the perspective of Little Red Riding Hood, but imagine it were written from the perspective of the wolf. What would that wolf be feeling and thinking and doing? The next strategy is called the Plusminus Interesting strategy. The plus makes you think of all the good things that are happening. The minus is all the problems and things that aren't so great. And interesting are things that are just cool. We'd like you to create a PMI chart for a variety of things to get you thinking in different ways about a certain situation. Think first about learning at home. What are some really great things about learning at home? Well, 1 plus might be you get to have your parents as a teacher. 1 minus would be you can't hang out with your friends. So get thinking and try some of those PMIs. The third strategy is fluency, flexibility, originality, and elaboration. When we use our fluency, we try to come up with as many ideas as possible and make a really long list of things. So in this activity, we want you to make a list of as many words that you can that start with the prefix un. A prefix is a word beginning, and un means not. So first we want you to think about what it means to be unhappy. How might you help someone who is feeling that way? Can you think of some ideas? How would you help somebody who was feeling unhappy? One way that I do it is just smiling. I love to smile at people because it often makes them feel better. Sometimes I like to sing a song. Singing often makes people feel better. Or you could write a nice note or do somebody a favor. There are lots of ways to make somebody feel happy again when they're unhappy. Some other things we want you to think about as you're being fluent, flexible, original, and elaborating on that is you could design a machine that could help you unbutton a coat or an unusual map of an undiscovered island. We want you to add details to that machine that will help you unbutton a coat and labels, or add details to the map to show why the undiscovered island is so unusual. Get creative. The next creative activity is called Scamper. In Scamper, we try to substitute or combine, adapt, minimize or maximize, put to other uses, eliminate something, or rearrange something. So the first choice of activities is thinking about a donut. Oh, and I love donuts. But in this activity, you're going to try to think of a really creative donut, one that's never been seen before. Because typically, a donut's round and it has some icing. Maybe it has some sprinkles on the top. But think what your own original donut could look like and taste like and be like. If I created my own donut, it would be a donut for my cat. I love my cat, so I would make my donut in the shape of a fish. And it would be tuna flavored. And on the inside, it would have cream, and she would love licking that cream out of the center of the donut. It would be pretty small because my cat's not very big, and I wouldn't want her to get a bellyache. See how fun it is to be creative with Scamper? Some other choices are designing a bike that could ride underwater, or designing a hospital for sick patients, designing a menu with unusual pizzas, or designing cars that fly. The next strategy is called visualization. When you visualize, you picture something in your mind. This is a thing that great readers do too. When I read, I'm constantly making a movie in my head of what I'm reading in my head. It's really great to help me understand what I'm reading. But when you visualize, you can also be dreaming of what something could be like. So the first option is closing your eyes and thinking of what the future would be like. Let's try it. When I dream of the future, I dream of a place where we care so much about the planet that we hardly ever use cars anymore, and the cars that we have put out very little pollution. We also have switched things out, which will have switched things out so that the best thing to do on a weekend would be go outside and garden or plant a tree or observe animals. I think our world is such a wonderful place, but I hope that in the future we'll pay more attention to the natural things and care about them. That's what I see for the future. I wonder what you saw. There are some other things that you could visualize too. For instance, you could close your eyes and think about your dream vacation, or your best birthday ever, or a dream bedroom. What would that look like? Or the coolest snowman you could ever possibly create. And the seventh strategy that we're introducing is called making connections. Your brain loves to make connections or links between things. So we've included sets of 3 pictures. In each set of pictures, we want you thinking closely about them. Think about how they're the same or how they're different. Think about which one's most important and why. Think about which one's most like you, or which one's most like your favorite book character or your least favorite book character. Gosh, when I look at the first three pictures, the lion, the mosquito, and the snake, I think about the quiet power that they all have. They're so powerful, but in their own way. I also like to think about the snake being a lot like a book character from a book I just read called Frindle. Now, in Frindle, the character isn't evil or anything. He's just kind of sneaky, and he does something behind his teacher's back. So you don't know, you don't even expect what he's going to do. Snakes are kind of like that too. You don't even see them. They could be around you when you're walking around the woods, but you don't see them. You don't know what they're up to. So we'd love for you to think about these sets of pictures and see how the three pictures in each box are connected. It's great for your brain to do this kind of thinking. We would love to see all the great thinking that you're doing at home, so we hope that you'll take a photo or a video of your thinking and tag it with #@HomeWithAPS or @APS Gifted Services or #APS Gifted Service. We're so glad you tuned in today to learn about our critical and creative thinking strategies for the month of May. Have fun thinking!
Hi there, Arlington Public School learners. Miss Franz here today with a fun, critical, and creative thinking strategy. Today, we're going to be looking and using the story The Animal Bridge that is in the second grade learning packet. If you happen to have that packet, now would be a great time to go find it so you can reference it throughout today's lesson. However, if you don't have it, not a big worry whatsoever, because the strategies that I'm going to be targeting in on today can be used with any story that you have read. Let's get started. So, like I said, my name is Miss Franz, and I am the resource teacher for the gifted over at Arlington Traditional School at ATS. I get to work with students K through 5 and get to grow their brains using these fun, critical, and creative thinking strategies. You can also find me on Twitter @MissFranz. Today, we're going to focus in on 2 learning goals. The first one is questioning. We know as readers, we're always asking questions before, during, after, all the time. A questioning technique that I'm going to focus in with you today is an I see, I think, I wonder. We're going to use those stems to help us recall what happens in the story and also use it as a way to think about the character's point of view in the story. After that, we're then going to become fluent, flexible, and original thinkers. So we're going to jot down lots and lots of ideas on a prompt that I give you. We're going to think about one of those ideas in a different, unique way, and then come up with something totally original to add to the story. So like I said, we are going to be doing a little bit of writing. So if you do happen to have a pencil and a paper, or a pencil and paper, that would be great to go grab, as well as your story if you do happen to have it. Let's get started. So like I said, I always love this strategy, I see, I think, I wonder, because it makes me think about things at a bigger picture. However, I'm going to tweak it a little bit today. Instead of saying from my point of view, we're going to change that pronoun to they. I want to think about what the characters in the story are seeing, thinking, and wondering at the beginning. But that actually makes me think. Who are the characters in this story? Do you remember? Yes, the forest animals, right? There was bear and blue jay and moose and skunk. Who am I forgetting? Oh yeah, rabbit. And I think and turtle. Good remembering. You probably have a better memory than Miss Franz. I want you to think now, what did they see at the beginning of the story? What did they see, or who did they see? Now would be a good time to jot those ideas down. Or if you have a family member nearby, tell them. Let's compare your answers and my answers. So in the actual text, if you went back, the author did say that they saw construction workers, trees being chopped up, and dirt and grass being dug up. So that I only then infer that there probably are tools or some sort of like bulldozer, trucks, maybe there's new, bigger buildings. What did they think when all of this happened? Share with a family member. What did the animals think when they saw all this construction going on in their habitat? Let's compare our answers. I think they were thinking what the construction workers were going to do to their habitat. Were they thinking they were going to ruin their habitat? I think Bear especially was thinking about the berries, and if there's not going to be any more of them to eat. They were probably thinking about their friends and family that's on the other side. Remember, Deer was worried that he couldn't get in touch with his friends and family anymore? What were your answers like compared to Miss Franz's answers? Any similarities or differences? So they saw the construction going on. They were thinking about what that would mean to their habitat. So now what are they wondering? What were the next steps? Jot it down. Let's compare. Were they wondering if it was ever going to stop? Were they wondering when it was going to stop? Do you think that they were wondering if they could stop it themselves? Or if things would ever go back to normal? What other things did you come up with? What were they wondering? Did we have anything similar? Things to add to my list? Now that we remember what happened in the beginning of the story, in the middle of the story, they came up with some solutions. Do you remember what those solutions to solve their problems were? Think back. Maybe these pictures can help you remember. That's right. Rabbit was going to chew the wires to stop it from working. But then that didn't work. Then Moose rammed into the front of the truck to stop the construction workers from continuing their work. But that didn't work. And then the skunk even sprayed them. But yet they kept on working. Were those solutions a good thing? Well, if you remember, the end of the story totally took a twist, didn't it? How did the story end? That's right. They weren't trying to ruin their habitat after all. They were actually making a bridge for the animals to use and to cross safely to get across the street. Phew. I didn't see that one coming, though. That one surprised me. Did it surprise you too? Well, I do have to say, I was pretty impressed with their solutions that they came up with at the middle of the story. Because I was assuming that the construction workers were already ready to ruin their habitat. So let's think about if you were the author. And how would you change this story? So we're going to transition now into doing our activity, FFOE. So we're going to be fluent right now. If you do have that paper and pencil handy, we're going to generate a quick list. And on this list, I want you to think about if you were one of the forest animals in this story. Maybe you're bear, or blue jay, or a moose, or maybe just any other forest animal that lives in that habitat. What would have you done in the middle of the story to help suggest that they help with the construction workers? What would they do? Go ahead, jot down a bunch of different ideas, and I'll wait. Remember, we don't want to re-put what was already said in the story, right? So, Rabbit was going to cut the wires from the truck. Moose rammed his head. The skunk sprayed. What could have they also done? Think about animal adaptations. My mind is thinking is, well, what if there was a porcupine in the story? What could they have done with their quills? Or what could have the blue jay done? Or what about the bear? Keep generating that list. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds. How many are you going to come up with? More, the better. All right, friends, I'm going to go on to our next slide, but keep those fluent ideas coming. Because what's going to happen next is we're going to be flexible in our thinking. I want you to take a look at that list that you just made. Now, pick just one of them and circle it. Think about which one that you could use to add it to the story. What we're going to do is you are going to take one of those solutions and pretend that you're the author and create and design a new page in the story. Let me explain. You're going to create a new page. You're going to write a detailed description for a new way to help solve this construction problem. This could even change the ending of the story, too. I also would love it if you illustrated what happened. So, for example, what Miss Franz came down on one of her ideas was that blue jay loves to chirp and sing, chirp, 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 chirp. I'm thinking in this story that perhaps Blue Jay gets all of his other bird friends and they decide to sing and chirp and annoy the construction workers all the time. That then they do decide to actually leave and they don't finish making the bridge. That was my original and elaborative idea. So I want to see those fun, critical, and creative thinking ways of how you would add to this story. Would it change the ending? So your task for today is to think about how you can add another solution to the story and then potentially change the ending. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. If you liked our questioning strategy today, as well as our FFOE strategy, there are some ways that you can incorporate this at home. Let me just spend a few minutes going over some possible extension activities. We know that questioning can happen all the time. It's the process of actively clarifying, exploring, challenging, and accessing the understanding of any basic idea. So the strategy of see, think, wonder can be done anywhere, anyhow. I'm going to urge you when you're on a walk this week, or even at home, take a picture of something. Could be something totally random. Let it sit in your camera roll for a day or two, kind of forget about it. Then come back to it. What do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? Has your thinking changed? It would also be really cool if different people took different pictures and then swapped them and switched and then had conversations about that. You really have some great conversations. If you like the FFOE strategy, it would be great for you to do at home. We know that it's a skill that can be focused on the production of many ideas, being fluent, the expression of new ideas, being flexible, and then the recombination of ideas, so being original and elaborative. It allows us to create and consider those multiple ideas and perspectives in any subject area. So I have a great idea. As we just finished wrapping up April, we know April 1st was April Fool's Day. But did you know that April 1st is also Reading is a Funny Day? Reading is Funny Day shows that reading can be entertaining and funny, whether with jokes, riddles, or funny stories. So, why don't you be fluent, and I want you to make a list of 20 different things that makes you smile and laugh. Then, be flexible in your thinking and pick one of them, and turn one of those ideas into a funny story or a joke. Also, one last thing is you can make a list out of blank ideas. Come up with something and fill in the blank. Make a list of quarantined ideas. Make a list of learning ideas. And then extend it. What would happen if I turned one of those ideas into a blank? For today's lesson, we are going to be using the story Rocky Mountain National Park that was in the second grade reading packet for this week. If you do happen to have your packet handy, now would be a great time to go get it, as it'll be a great reference point throughout today's lesson. However, if you don't happen to have a copy, no worries, because you can use this strategy with any book that you are currently reading. Let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, my name is Miss Franz, and I am the resource teacher for the gifted over at Arlington Traditional School. It's my job to work with students to help grow their brains to think more critically and creatively. For today's lesson, we are going to be taking a look at point of view. We're going to be thinking about what life might be like if you were an actual mountain in Rocky Mountain National Park. We're going to be taking the perspective of a mountain. For this lesson, you may want to go ahead and grab a piece of paper and a pencil, as it's going to help guide our thinking. So what does Ms. Franz mean when I say point of view? Well, point of view allows us to explore ideas from multiple points, so it helps us get a broader sense of our thinking. If you remember from the story Rocky Mountain National Park, they had a focus question. While we were reading this story, they were encouraging us, and by they, I mean authors, to think about not only where National Park was located, but also what visitors can see and do. So as I was reading this story, I learned a lot of information about what I can do at this national park. I was taking the perspective of a tourist or of a hiker or a visitor of Rocky Mountain National Park. But then I got to think how the mountains must feel with all of these visitors. And that's what made me think about, well, what's the perspective like for the mountain? So again, point of view not only helps us examine different perspectives, but it also is a model for open-ended thinking and makes us empathize not only with others, but with different things. And in this case, a mountain. So let's think back to our story. What were the point of view of the hikers in this story? Remember, they were exploring different mountains, and there were lots of different hikes for them to take. Do you remember in this story the location of where the Rocky Mountains are? That's right. The Rocky Mountains start all the way up in Canada and go down south and end in New Mexico. But the national park, which is the best part of the Rocky Mountains, is located in the state of Colorado. Oh boy, do you remember the part of the story when it talked about the peaks of the tall mountains in the Rocky Mountain National Park? And how these mountain lakes are great reflectors of those tall mountain peaks. Do you also recall the certain wildlife that is familiar and part of this habitat in the Rocky Mountain National Park? From the mountain lions to the moose to all the different birds. There was a lot of information that I learned when reading this nonfiction text. Remember, the table of contents is a great opportunity for us to reference when we want to go back and look at specific parts. If I wanted to know more about taking a vacation in the Rocky Mountain National Parks, where would I go? That's right, I would probably skip to page 11 to plan a visit. What about, do you remember how long ago these mountain ranges formed? Where would I go to find that? Ah, yes, the table of contents probably tells me to go to the Young Mountains. But if you remember, this mountain range is not very young. Do you remember when these mountains started to form? How many years ago? Now would be a good time to go back and take a look. That's right. 165 million years ago was when this mountain range started to form. That's a long time ago. Man, if I'm taking the perspective of the Rocky Mountains, I'm very old. So how are we going to do this? We're going to use a critical and creative thinking strategy with thinking hats. De Bono's thinking hats. Now, what are De Bono's thinking hats? Well, let me tell you. De Bono's thinking hats is a strategy and a way for you to think about things more critically. It's a framework that can be used with all people of different ages, from young to old. It helps us use a common language to help solve problems or think about things, and to avoid just any confusion. So let's think about the rules on how we use these hats. First things first, each hat stands for one way of thinking. Each hat represents an equal value. One is not more important than the other. You can take on a hat and take it off, but you don't wear more than one hat at a time. You can force someone else to wear these hats, to help them think about a situation differently. When you're wearing this hat, you have to think about that way of thinking that's indicated by its color. Now, there are a total of 6 different thinking hats, but for this lesson today, we're only going to be focusing on 4. So what in the world is Miss Franz talking about with all of these hats? We're not really going to be wearing hats. I want you to think about it as when perhaps you have pulled down a thinking cap and tied it on really tight and pretended that you had a hat on. That's what we're going to do when we wear these different types of hats. Now, I do happen to have several different hats that I'm going to put on just because it's fun and I have them. But you obviously don't have to really wear these hats to think that way. It's just kind of like pretend. So we have our white hat. I have a yellow hat, kind of yellow. This is my red hat. And then my green shamrock hat. All right, let's go. If you happen to have your paper, now would be a great time to go ahead and fold it into 4 sections, just like what I did here. When you open it up, I want you to label white hat, yellow hat, green hat, red hat. We're going to use this piece of paper as a graphic organizer to jot down our thinking when you are pretending that you are a mountain. I am going to go through and we're going to get started, but at any point in time we can start and then you can always go back to it once this lesson is over. The first hat that Miss Franz is going to put on, and I'm going to ask you to pretend put it on, is our white hat. Hopefully it fits. There we go. This white hat is the facts hat. It's also known as an information hat. It's just the facts. So, while Miss Franz is wearing her silly white hat, I want you to think about what your journey would be like if you were a Rocky Mountain from birth to present. So I want you to pretend to think back all the way until 165 years prior to 2020. With your graphic organizer, and if you have a text, think back to what information, what facts do you know about the Rocky Mountains? The first thing that comes to my mind that's a true hard fact is that the Rocky Mountains are 165 million years old. What other facts are you going to put on your sheet? Perhaps you want to think about the distance of how long the Rocky Mountains are. That's a fact, and that's part of my life of being a mountain. How long am I? I can't wait to see what other facts you come up with. But right now I'm going to go ahead and take off my white hat because now it's time to put on my yellow hat. Boys and girls, when I wear a yellow hat, it symbolizes brightness, sunshine. And under this hat, I explore positives and the benefits. So, what do you think are some good things about being a Rocky Mountain? As opposed to just any old mountain. What makes being a Rocky Mountain special? Think back to your text. What are some good things? One idea that I had was that there are plenty of trails to safely guide hikers so that as a mountain, I stay protected and my land doesn't get ruined. What are some other good things about being a Rocky Mountain? Keep working on those positive good things. But I'm going to pause and go to our next hat. The next hat is going to be the green hat, which let me put it on. When I wear my green hat, I focus in on being creative. I explore all the different possibilities and new ideas. It's really an opportunity to express new concepts. So if I am a Rocky Mountain and I'm 165 million years old, what are some things that I've seen in my day? How have things changed? Well, let's think. Perhaps I may want to go back to the chapter of history of Rocky Mountain National Park. Here, they share that the president in 1915 actually made me a national park to protect me and all of my land. That is also a fact that I could have included with my white hat or my green hat because I have seen it change over time. What other things have you seen? Perhaps the seasons have changed over time. Perhaps the type of tourists that you've seen. Do you think the different animals and wildlife or wildflowers have changed over time? And don't forget about that tree peak that was mentioned. How do you think that has changed? Remember, you can always go back to the green hat, but I'm going to keep moving because we have one more hat that Miss Franz needs to put on, and that's her red hat. Even though it's kind of reddish beige. You guys get the point? How do I look? All right. When I wear this red hat, it makes me feel the feelings or any hunches that I may have. So when I wear this hat, I can express my emotions. Think about things that I like or don't like, or any fears I might have. So, if I am a mountain, what things do I feel? And don't kid yourself, mountains have feelings too. Take a look. Remember this text feature of a line graph that was located in your story? This was counting how many tourists visit Rocky National Park. As you see, there is a great incline over the last 100 years, from 1 million to 4 million back in 2015. This makes me feel extremely tired from all of my entertaining. How else do you think the mountains feel, and why do you think that? Are they excited? Are they scared? Perhaps even overwhelmed? Tell me why they would be feeling like that. All right, boys and girls, I'm going to pause with our hat activity for right now, the de Bonos hats. But remember, you can always go back and add to it. But I'm going to pause just for sake of time because I have one more activity that I want us to work on. And that is creating a diary of a mountain. So if you flip your paper over to the back, I would love for you to illustrate and write a journal entry entitled Diary of a Mountain. I want you to think about comparing the life of the Rocky Mountains to your life. You can even list the ways that your thoughts are different or similar than the actual Rocky Mountains. Remember, add details from your story to prove your thinking. Reflect on what life is like, any challenges that you may have if you were a mountain. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Boys and girls, if you like using our strategy of de Bono's hats, I have a couple other ideas of how you can incorporate this at home. Let me begin. My first family engagement lesson is for you to continue a diary, but not with a diary of a mountain. Instead, a diary entry of anything that you would like. Feel free to pick something outside your window. Pick something outside. Perhaps like a butterfly. If I saw a butterfly, I could write a journal entry, diary of a butterfly, and go through and compare all the different feelings and thoughts using the different de Bono's hats to guide your way in thinking about the life of a butterfly. Another opportunity to use de Bono's hats is to be thinking about screen time. We know more than ever, especially now, students are spending a lot of time on screens. And actually, not even students. Parents and siblings and all family members are actually doing a lot of screen time. So I want you to think about, if I was wearing my white hat, what are some of the facts? Is there research done on this topic? Pros and cons? Remember, just the facts when I wear my white hat. If you're going to wear your yellow hat, remember that yellow hat is for the positives or the good things. So think about, what are the benefits of allowing people to use screen time, or even students to use the electronic devices while virtually learning. Next, I want you to think about your green hat, the creativity. What if we didn't even have screen times during the time of quarantine? What else, or how else, would teachers push their learning assignments to you? How could teachers help you learn? Come up with a new way without screen time to allow students to learn. And then finally, red hat. How do you, your family, and your teachers feel about all this screen time? Was it exciting at first? And now maybe it's just kind of meh? Or maybe you're feeling, well, I don't know. You tell me. And I have one more family engagement opportunity for you guys to use de Bono's hats at home throughout your conversations. It's as simple as that. As a family, you can summarize any conversation and have a discussion about different emotions that people in your family might feel about a certain problem. Force yourself to wear the different color hats. And remember, one of the rules of wearing the de Bono's hats is forcing each other to wear a different hat. Reflect on considering different points of view could influence or help our understanding of the issue and of each other. Boys and girls, that concludes my lesson for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I really hope that you take the time to finish up your graphic organizer and complete your diary entry of a mountain. If you do, and you happen to be on Twitter, go ahead and use the below hashtags, or to my side, at APS Gifted, and you can tag me as well. I would love to see what you guys come up with. I hope you have a great day. Bye now.